Welcome to the First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the internal and nurturing community and pursue the common good. Wherever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, and whatever your life circumstance, you're welcome here.
We begin our service today with these words from Adrienne Marie Brown. I want you to know I honor the choices you made in solitude, and I honor the work you have done to belong. I honor your commitment to that which is larger than yourself and your journey to love the particular container of life that is you. You are enough. Your work is enough. You are needed. Your work is sacred. You are here, and I am grateful. Marissa, would you light our chalice?
We light this chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning of this chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Our opening hymn is number 128 in our gray hymnal, For All That Is Our Life. It's performed here by Jess Hudeman, and the slide will have the lyrics on it if you'd like to sing along at home. I am thrilled to introduce our new Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration, Tim Atkins, who in just a moment will read a story for all ages. I want to let you know that we will formally install Tim as our DLRE during our in-gathering service on September the 20th. But for now, I want to extend my gratitude to the search committee, who worked so diligently and so well in order to recruit an exceptional new member of our staff. So search committee members, when I say your name, could you put up a hand, either a real hand or a virtual hand when I say your name? The search committee was led by Lynn Ann Wagner, and the other committee members were Michael Kay, Courtney Custer, Alyssa Lee, Zane Scott, and Charlie Single Shin. Could we get a round of virtual applause for this team? Thanks so much. Tim, take it away.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I also am quite a fan of the work of the search committee too. So thank you all for bringing me to Oklahoma. So when I was young, I thought of Labor Day mostly as the final weekend of the summertime before the school year really got started. But Labor Day has a whole deeper meaning to it. It's a day that's set aside for us to remember all the wonderful things workers' movements have fought for on behalf of all of us. Even things like this weekend wouldn't have been possible without the American labor movement. All of us have benefited from workers' movements throughout the years, and Labor Day celebrates the hard work of these workers who brought us Labor Day, the weekend, who ended child labor, and who worked towards more income equality. So how did workers get these hard-earned victories for all of us? I think a group of cows might have our answer. So let's take a look at our story today. Our story today is Click, Clack, Moo Cows That Type, written by Doreen Cornyn, pictures by Betsy Lewin, and published by Simon & Schuster Books for Young Readers. Farmer Brown has a problem. His cows like to type. All day long he hears click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clickety, clack, moo. At first he couldn't believe his ears. Cows that type? Impossible. Click, clack, moo, click, clack, moo, clickety, clack, moo. Then he couldn't believe his eyes. Look, there's a note on the door. Dear Farmer Brown, the barn is very cold at night. We'd like some electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. It was bad enough that the cows had found the old typewriter in the barn. Now they wanted electric blankets? No way, said Farmer Brown. No electric blankets. So the cows went on strike. They left a note on the barn door. Sorry, we're closed. No milk today. No milk today, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard the cows busy at work. Click, clack, moo. Click, clack, moo. Clickety, clack, moo. The next day, he got another note. Dear Farmer Brown, the hens are cold too. They like electric blankets. Sincerely, the cows. The cows were growing impatient with the farmer, so they left a new note on the barn door. Closed. No milk, no eggs. No eggs, cried Farmer Brown. In the background, he heard them. Click, clack, moo. Click, clack, moo. Clickety, clack, moo. Cows that type, hens on strike. Who ever heard of such a thing? How can I run a farm with no milk and no eggs? Farmer Brown was furious. So Farmer Brown got out his own typewriter. Dear cows and hens, there will be no electric blankets. You are cows and hens. I demand milk and eggs. Sincerely, Farmer Brown. So Duck was a neutral party, and so he brought the ultimatum to the cows. The cows held an emergency meeting. All the animals gathered around the barn to snoop, but none of them could understand moo. All night long, Farmer Brown waited for an answer. Well, Duck knocked on the door early the next morning, and he handed Farmer Brown a note. Dear Farmer Brown, we will exchange our typewriter for electric blankets. Leave them outside the barn door, and we will send Duck over with the typewriter. Sincerely, the cows. Well, Farmer Brown decided that this was a pretty good deal. He left the blankets next to the barn door and waited for Duck to come with the typewriter. And look at them all enjoying those electric blankets. Well, the next morning, he got a note. Dear Farmer Brown, the pond is quite boring. We'd like a diving board. Sincerely, the ducks. Click, clack, quack. Click, clack, quack. Clickety, clack, quack. The end. So how did the cows get the changes they wanted from Farmer Brown? Well, that's right. They went on strike and they were able to find a compromise. Can you think of times that you were able to find a compromise when you wanted something different than someone else? Can you think of a time when you stood up for what was right or supported someone else who was protesting? At different parts of our lives, we can all be the farmer, the cow, the hen, or the duck. Sometimes we can be the farmer. We might not always know we're doing something that harms someone else. Sometimes we can be the cows, protesting something that directly affects us and trying to make change. Sometimes we can be the hens, protesting something that affects our lives, our friends, or our neighbors, and standing in solidarity. And sometimes we can be the duck, helping two sides having a disagreement come to an equitable and fair solution. Different times call for different roles. And right now, I hope we have a whole lot of hens running around. All right, that was a strange sentence to say, but I hope most of us are the kind of folks who are willing to protest to support our friends and neighbors who face unfair conditions. So next time that someone calls you a chicken or a hen, wear it with pride. And let us all remember the workers who brought us Labor Day and so many protections that we currently have. And let us all remember to have the courage to help out others when they are protesting and striking for fair and equal treatment. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Well, Marissa Horn-Petrie is a member of our congregation and a worker owner at Fertile Ground. Fertile Ground is a worker-owned cooperative that provides sustainable environmental solutions in central Oklahoma. So on this Labor Day weekend, I asked Marissa to share with us a little about what it's like to work for a cooperative where workers have control over the conditions of their labor. Marissa.
Hi, thank you. Glad to be here this morning. Marissa, and my pronouns are they, them. And just like Reverend Diana was saying, I'm asked here to speak on reflection as to my experiences as a worker owner of a business here in the city, especially during the current worldwide pandemic. To start off, like you said, I'm part of a green cooperative, and we work together with the community and the businesses to change not only the perceptions that we have in the way we live our lives sustainably, but also change how we talk about labor and capital worth of individuals. Today, we're talking about labor and the capital worth as self-worth, here at a church. And what I find personally is that what we do in our job tends to advise our identity. I say as a worker owner of a business that my job is not my identity. My labor holds value, but is not always directly tied to me. It is the community that sometimes needs this value more. In this contemporary time, we live in an uncommon time as well because of the pandemic. It may be for a lot of us, though, that we have been living uncommonly before the pandemic even started. We as a country struggle with not only this virus, but a long time of a sickened social structure. People are hurting because of disproportionate measures in wealth, food, and healthcare. This is in direct correlation to race, gender, and class. Being a worker owner of a cooperative gives me a voice to discuss and discover these small moments of empowerment amongst these topics, to open up a platform from these disproportionate thoughts to breathe. We as a cooperative come together to seek something greater than us, as a business and as a family. We've come together to deconstruct perceptions of finality for a broken system. We do not have to live in such uncommon times without a power in the collective and a celebration in diversity. We can live in the differences, parallel great interconnectivity. These are the feelings I'm having when I'm thinking about work. And that's because I know just a little bit more than I did yesterday. I went to work during a pandemic, and I knew I could be a subject of change. Our cooperative is able to fill small moments of sustainability in labor because of a necessity for the work. This necessity is not only in the work being done, but the people doing it and the value they cultivate in themselves because of it. Yes, we're in a permanent state of suffering because of the pandemic, but I believe that is really forcing us to be real with ourselves and real with the capital value this country puts on us, and we have accepted it for way too long. Being part of a worker-owned cooperative has driven me each day to not only understand the power I may have, but understand the false power I give away. I am learning to perceive my world as evolving much more than what I can actually see. I take this pandemic challenge of labor and love to find my own labor of love. And I'd like to add something that this pandemic has brought to my eyes very briefly. It is not only a gross imbalance of wealth and power in our country we're facing, but an imbalance of shared knowledge. I have been involved in labor and community training for sustainable work for almost 6 years now here at a cooperative. It has never been more clear to me the connection needed to be made between environmental justice and racial justice. When we are leaving behind a mass of our community, when we say recycle, eat organic, do better for this earth, to groups of marginalized people who are still living in food deserts without a lack of rich soils to grow on. Eating and living for this earth has become a divide. When we make these connections, when we share our knowledge, we are not empowering those who are marginalized, but we are setting a path for all of us to be able to empower ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. Ingrid?
Yes, thank you, Marissa, a lot. Every Sunday, we take an offering. All the cash and designated checks from that offering go directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work in our community, our Change for Change partners. This month, our Change for Change partner is the Lottie House Drop-In Center. Lottie House is a safe and welcoming place for adults impacted by mental health illness, homelessness, substance use, and co-occurring conditions. Their goal is to provide an environment of social support and education and to be a bridge to other community resources. While we listen to the offertory, you may wish to make a donation to our Change for Change partner using a credit card through our website. Or this could be a good time to find your checkbook, write out a check, and put it aside to mail to First Unitarian tomorrow morning. Let today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world.
Thanks, Ingrid. This song by Amanda Udis Kessler celebrates the inherent worth and dignity of every worker, and it calls us to acknowledge the special sacrifice of every person who works on the front line of the pandemic.
Jesus, the essential worker, never made a lot of money, rode a bike and fed the hungry, carrying deliveries. Jesus, the essential worker, drove a truck and dropped off boxes, ran a shelter for the homeless, caring for the least of these. Jesus, the essential worker, made the beds and changed the dressing, cleaned another ventilator, wiped another toilet down. Jesus, the essential worker, mopped the floor and stocked the freezer, waited for a bus to take her to the poorer part of town. You can see it in the numbers. Some lives matter more than others. Every day it makes me wonder who's essential, what that means. We could choose to feed the hungry, heal the sick, and love our neighbors. We could be essential workers, building up the world we dream. Jesús siempre trabajando, comida dando y cuidando, enseñando y curando, trayendo amor a todos. Jesús pobre para los pobres, viajando solo en el metro. Jesús enfermo, Jesús enferma, Jesús llorando y rezando. Jesus, the essential worker, had a job with no insurance, no protection from infection, no paid leave when he got ill. Jesus, the essential worker, died in pain, alone, forsaken. Jesus, the essential worker, feeds the hungry even still. Every worker is essential, also every human being. Soul and body, mind and story, each essential in our way. When we choose to feed the hungry, heal the sick and love our neighbors, Jesus, the essential worker, lives in all our lives today.
In our free religious tradition, we recognize service to the congregation as an expression of our faith, commitment, and love. And we recognize that the call to leadership is one that carries both honor and great responsibility. This congregation has elected the following members to lead them in the coming year. And again, I know it's difficult with all of the little boxes to see everyone, but if when I say your name, you could wave so we can see you. Ingrid Young, President. Susan Bishop, immediate past President. Lynn Ann Wagner, President-elect. David Moore, Treasurer. Chris Gonzalez, Secretary. And also Miranda Fair, Fawn Hammonds, Michael Kay, Laura Lochner, Leslie McCullough, and Zane Scott. And I also want to acknowledge Paula Geisinger, who is rotating off the board for her many years of service. Thank you, Paula.
You, the members of the First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City, have asked us to take on the sacred work of servant leadership. We ask you to support us in our work, share your ideas and concerns in love, and extend to us your trust as we fulfill the responsibilities of governance.
Dear new and returning members of the Board of Trustees, the work you have chosen to do on behalf of this congregation is indeed sacred work, but it can also be unglamorous labor, including hours of reviewing and building budgets, approving policies and procedures, dealing with frustration, and welcoming creative conflict. But in doing this work, you play a key role in building our beloved community. This ritual of investiture is intended to honor and acknowledge the mutual commitment of the board and the rest of the congregation to a shared ministry rooted in love. Members of the Board of Trustees, would you reach out a hand toward the screen and go ahead and unmute yourselves? Trustees, will you be diligent and faithful in your work, bringing your best selves and practicing self-care and open-heartedness, tending with love to the details of your work, and always keeping the goal of beloved community in front of you as you serve? If so, please respond, we will.
We will.
Oh, thank you. And you can go ahead and remute yourselves now. And now to the members of First Unitarian Church. Will you offer love and trust to your board, responding when they seek your input, showing up when they tell you that work needs to be shared, and listening carefully when they speak of the life of the church? If yes, please raise your hand, wave your hand, or put up a little waving hand response. trustees, may the spirit of love guide you in the coming year. May a spirit of joy infuse the work you engage, and may your service bless the world. Amen. This is a reading from the work The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And then a plowman said, "Speak to us of work." And he answered, saying, "Always you have been told that work is a curse and a labor, a misfortune. But I say to you that when you work, you fulfill a part of earth's furthest dream, assigned to you when that dream was born. And in keeping yourself with labor, you are in truth loving life. And to love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret."
All work is empty save when there is love. And when you work with love, you bind yourself to yourself and to one another and to God. And what is it that to work with love? It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. It is to build a house with affection, even as if your beloved were to dwell in that house. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy, even as if your beloved were to eat the fruit. It is to charge all things you fashion with the breath of your own spirit, and to know that the blessed dead are standing about you and watching.
Often have I heard you say, as if speaking in sleep, "He who works in marble and finds the shape of his own soul in the stone is nobler than he who plows the soil. And he who seizes the rainbow to lay it on a cloth in the likeness of man is more than he who makes the sandals for our feet." But I say, not in sleep, but in the over-wakefulness of noontide, that the wind speaks not more sweetly to the giant oaks than to the least of all the blades of grass. And he alone is great, who turns the voice of the wind into a song made sweeter by his own loving. Work is love made visible. Thank you, Ingrid. Before COVID, there was retirement. A few years ago, that was the life-threatening phenomenon that was being hashed out in countless financial newspapers and lifestyle magazines. There was a surge in people, men in particular, who were dying soon after retiring at the age of 62, the age when Social Security benefits kicked in, when the average life expectancy was closer to 79. And scientists and statisticians were trying to figure out why. It turned out that these men weren't retiring by choice, but because their jobs were disappearing. And because of rigid gender norms and expectations, along with their jobs, they were losing their identities, not just as, quote, breadwinners, but as miners or metal workers, as postmasters or watch repairers. Post-retirement, they floundered, not knowing how to find meaning outside of work, and many of them died. My father was like this. He managed to make it a full 10 years post-retirement, but I think that was only because technically he refused to retire. After a full career as a biology professor and long years of service as a department chair, he retired in 1992. But he didn't really retire. From day one, it was cleaning, organizing, yard work, and home projects that took the place of his academic work. And let me tell you, as a general rule, academic research is a whole lot quieter than vacuuming at 7:30 in the morning. Once he'd run out of projects at home and had nothing left to scour or grout, he took odd jobs in order to feel useful. He put up real estate signs for $2 an hour. He drove a Red Cross truck. He worked for a car auction company, picking up and driving cars to showrooms. The first time in his life when he developed friendships with people of other races, by the way. And he apprenticed for an electrician. I don't remember too much about that last one, except that there were stories of near electrocutions and hornets' nests hidden inside neon signs that led to some interesting adventures. In 1923, 6 years before the worst economic downturn in the history of the industrialized world, Khalil Gibran wrote, "To be idle is to become a stranger unto the seasons and to step out of life's processes." For so many, this has been true. To retire, to lose one's identity as a productive worker, to lose the defining qualifications of a career, has indeed been to become a stranger unto the seasons and to step out of life's processes. Of course, many people aren't able to retire at all. They must work until they die simply so they can feed themselves and pay all the bills. And there are other people who have made retirement into an art, into a time of exploration and true relaxation. But it's also a fact that in our Western, white, straight, and male body dominant culture, retirement is often connected with a certain kind of dread. Not just financial, but emotional, psychological dread. And busyness, working hard, working overtime, is too often seen as a goal. I'm sure you know people whose typical response to the question, "How are you doing?" is a quantitative inventory of how much they're doing, not how they actually are. And yes, I'm pointing a finger back at myself here and not just at others. But then along comes the pandemic, both changing everything and changing nothing, but shining a bright light on the distorted way US dominant culture has shaped the very idea of work. Now, those same people who may have felt they had stepped out of life's processes upon their retirement feel doubly removed from life as they find themselves in a high-risk category for complications from COVID and are forced to self-quarantine. For so many, the isolation and the sense of purposelessness can be crushing. They aren't just separated from their loved ones and from the places they love, but they are very specifically without work, without a job to do. The pandemic has also illuminated both the tenuousness of work and its extreme importance. According to some fairly conservative sources, there are over 11 million fewer jobs today than there were back in February. Millions of people are realizing that the layoffs at their place of work are now permanent. And others have been hired back, but with fewer hours than they had before. And for those who've lost their jobs entirely or have gone from full-time to part-time status, many have also lost their health insurance because in this country, oddly, work isn't linked just to personal identity, self, or sense worth and income, but also to health itself. In the meantime, companies are already warning of more jobs cut in the fall, and relief funding seems caught up in a political quagmire, and people are hurting. The connection between work and the basic necessities of life is growing ever starker. For many of us who are still working and who are working from home, another problematic aspect of work has come into focus. That is the problem of work-life balance. For many, the line between working and not working was already pretty thin, But now the small but significant buffers that used to separate these realms, the time spent listening to the radio while driving to work, the time spent making small talk with colleagues on the way into the office, those are all gone. There are no buffers anymore. It takes all of 1 minute to go from making breakfast in the kitchen to starting the first meeting of the day on Zoom. And for some of us, our office is now actually in the kitchen or at the dining room table. For folks in this situation, work has become a kind of creeping monster, like the fog in a Stephen King novel. It finds its way into everything and turns everything it touches into itself. Everything is work now, and it is exhausting. Of course, there are those who might look at that situation and call it a luxury. Frontline workers, essential workers, they don't have the option of staying at home. They face the public every day, risking their own well-being in the process. Many of these workers are doing this for little money and no glory. Grocery store workers average about $13 an hour. When the pandemic began, there were publicity campaigns describing these folks as heroes, and some received bonuses and hazard pay to keep them coming in to stock and sort and work the checkout lines. But that now feels like long ago, and both the heroic sheen and the extra income have faded away. And now we read again and again about grocery and retail workers who are expected to do their work and police indignant shoppers who refuse to wear a mask or observe social distancing guidelines. They're saying that they feel as though they aren't even treated as human beings by the very people they serve. All of this can make Khalil Gibran's words about work seem a little nostalgic or privileged. This idea that in working and laboring, we are loving life, that work is love made visible. How does that relate to endless hours of disembodied and disorienting screen meetings, or days and months of waiting for unemployment benefits that never come, or health benefits lost when hours are cut, or putting one's life on the line in order to work, not necessarily as a first responder, but as a restaurant employee or a teacher, or being screamed at and hit or even shot by customers just for asking them to wear a mask. The fact that these words can sound so dissonant compared to so many's current relationship with work isn't an indicator that Gibran is wrong. It's an indicator of just how distorted this country's dominant culture definition of work has become. What if we could connect those words, labor and love? What if we could truly embody that maxim that work is love made visible? If this is what we want to see in the world, then we need to act. Some basic steps need to be taken if we want the ability to work with love, to be everyone's right, and not just the privilege of a few. Those steps would include ensuring a livable wage for everyone who works, building a strong safety net so that losing a job doesn't mean losing access to healthcare or being able to buy food for your family, ending anti-union and anti-workers' rights laws, ensuring equal pay for equal work, and putting worker safety and well-being above concerns for profit. We must reclaim work as love made visible for others and for ourselves. This isn't just a time to engage in the social justice efforts that can help to turn work from a curse into a blessing. This is a time to examine our own personal relationship to work. In your labor, are you loving life? If not, why not? When you work, do you bind yourself, to one another, and to what is sacred? Or is your work devoid of love? And does it cause more division than connection? These are questions that we all need to ask ourselves, not only about the work that we do for an income, but about the unpaid work, the volunteer labor, the shared ministry that we do in our community and in this very congregation. Can we imagine a world in which every person could work as though all their work was on behalf of their beloved? In which every weaver could weave the cloth with threads drawn from their own heart, even as if their beloved were to wear that cloth. In which every house was built with affection, even as if the builder's beloved were to dwell in that house. Can we imagine a world in which seeds are sown with tenderness and the harvest is reaped with joy, even as if the farmer's beloved were to eat the fruit, in which all work was charged with the breath of the worker's own spirit? This is our mission, to both imagine and to work for such a world, knowing that all the blessed dead are standing around us and watching. Behind me today, you might notice there are 3 candles that are lit in memory of members and friends of our congregation who've died within the past month, including Nancy Condit, Pat Corley, and Mark Cates, who passed away on Thursday after a long illness. We're going to light one more candle today for all others who have died recently or who are in need of our love and support. And before we do that, I ask that you please go ahead and put their names in the chat. For all these, and for so many more unnamed here today, but deserving of love and care as the precious individuals they are, we light this candle. May they know peace. May we all rest in the heart of love today and always. Blessed be. Amen. Our closing hymn today is "We Shall Not Be Moved." "We Shall Not Be Moved" is a traditional American folk song. It may have been sung by enslaved people, but we don't know its roots for sure. We do know it started out as a spiritual with the title, I Shall Not Be Moved, referencing scripture, the book of Psalms 1, verse 3. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. In the 1930s, it became We Shall Not Be Moved to reflect collective liberation, and it became an anthem of the labor and civil rights movements. The chorus always stays the same, but the verses always change. And the verses that we'll be singing today were ones that were contributed by you. So Jim and I performed this in our living room. The sound quality isn't the best, but that just should invite you to sing along with us. So this is We Shall Not Be Moved. In our fight for justice, we shall not be moved. In our fight for justice, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Our calling never ends, we shall not be moved. Our calling never ends, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Let us take a knee, we shall not be moved. Let us take a knee, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We will love each other, we shall not be moved. We will love each other, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. On the road to freedom, we shall not be moved. On the road to freedom, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water, we shall not be moved. Marissa, would you extinguish our chalice?
Yes, thank you. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community which burns in our hearts.
Dear ones, I leave you with this blessing. May you always remember that you are enough. May you know that your work is enough. May you understand that you are needed. Your work is sacred. You are here, and I, and all those who love you, and all those who benefit from your work, whether they know it or not, we are grateful. Blessed be. I invite you all to come back, rejoin us for coffee hour, our virtual coffee hour. Same Zoom link as usual, or you can find it on our Facebook page or in our newsletter. And just a heads up, the beginning of the coffee hour will be a board recap. So our president, Ingrid Young, will be giving us an update on what the board's been working on and what some of the priorities are for the coming year. And after we've had a chance for some Q&A, we'll break up into our regular little discussion groups for some nice conversation. I am going to play a postlude. However, I'm going to stop the recording at this point, and I'm going to stop the Facebook Live. For those of you who are members or who are friends who are watching on Facebook, don't worry, I am going to post this video on our When You See Facebook private group, so you'll be able to see it there. But I've put together for this postlude a little PowerPoint slide that includes pictures that I just wiped off of our Facebook page, so they're not ones that others haven't seen, but I wasn't sure that you would want to have your pictures put out there for the entire world to see. So we will be stopping the Facebook stream at this point, and we won't be recording this to put on YouTube. But please, if you're on the Zoom right now, stick with us for a little postlude before we end our service today and then go to coffee hour. Blessed be, everyone.